Hello, my name is Im, and welcome back to my channel on Shingeki Day. Now, this is a different type of intro. I plan on using the thumbnail for this episode. Now, it's a different intro because I am trying to get a few more eyes on this intro because it explains the post-episode segment of this. So for this one and the next episode, episode 12, the post-episode segment is just audio and frames. So essentially it's presented as a podcast type presentation. Now the reason for this one having to be in this presentation is because it was corrupted. The footage of my post-episode discussion, it's a long file and I don't know, it's some PC issues after an update. I'm sure you've noticed a few issues here and there, glitches here and there, but for this one, it was kind of unusable, right? So I just decided to scrap all of the footage and just use the audio for the footage and just, replace the footage with frames from the episode itself. So, the difference is you're not going to see me in the post-episode discussion. You're going to hear me. That's the only difference. You're just not going to see me. And I took a precaution for the next episode as well. And I also did that for a Death Note episode because I'm not sure if my PC's back to its normal state. So I didn't want to take the risk. So I just decided to do a podcast type post-episode discussion for episode 12 as well. But this one just had corrupted footage. So I just scrapped the footage and used the audio for the footage. And that's how it's going to be presented. I hope you can help me out here. If you do see people asking about the change in the format, I would appreciate it if you could just reply and let them know the reasoning for that. I'm sure, a lot of you are going to check out the intro, but the majority is not going to check out the intro. So, I would really appreciate it if anyone could reply to any of those types of messages. Thank you for that ahead of time. I hope by episode 13, it's back to the usual format. This is just a temporary thing. Again, PC issues, it's been acting up a bit after an update. I hope to return to normal for episode 13, hopefully. But yeah, thank you for understanding and thank you for your time and thank you for joining me for this episode. I hope you enjoy. Oh, they're faking it. She's faking it. Oof. Jeez. Okay, loose brick. Whoa. Oh, Reiner.
悪い夢でも見たか。すべて夢ならよかったのにな。ガビとファルコの声が聞こえた。二人はどこだ?
Now Gabby and Falco just made it out of there. It looked like quite a big prison. Okay, I'm liking this. So perhaps a return to Marley? Or an update at least, hopefully. A few scenes. I hope there's at least a few scenes in Marley now. The aftermath, right? And the sticks. Oh, look at the background. Whoa.
こんなもんがここで何の役に立つってんだよ。私は善良なエルディア人なの。それがないと島の悪魔と同じになるでしょ。何言ってんだお前。おかしくなっちまったのか。
Oh, they're being stalked.
あんたまで死ぬことないのに。何してるの？こんな朝早くに。
Oh, it's No. No. Falco, step in. It is her. Out in the sticks. Oh, yes.
南方マーレの名前。
はじめまして。
Oh.
僕たちは兄弟で。ベンとミヤです。
Right, they have that accent. Sasha used to have that
親
accent,
元
right?
から逃げてきました。
そげん子供が頭を下げるもんやない。ブラス厩舎へよう来たね。
Brass. Great man, like I said.
おったらいいって。そしたらはよ、朝飯食わんと。リサ、この子。
ごめんね。辛いことがあったんやろうね。いえ。
Oh, look at the tension though.
ほら、ミヤも食えって。
すると、あちらが例の観測機でしょうか。
はい。氷瀑石を燃料に用いて実現
Whoa,
した
so they
世界
actually
初の飛行艇となるでしょう。鹿と地ならしの力、見定めさせていただきます。
Jeez.
義勇兵が一斉に拘束されたとの噂がありますが、その真相は。
なあハンジさん、説明してくれ。志願しなっから全住民強制退去命令だって。区の再建にリーブス商会は発生したのは兵団だろ。
イエーガー氏がもたらした勝利により、
Whoa,
我々の
look at
未来が
this.
開かれた。エルディア人に生きる未来はあるのだと。そうであれば、兵団とイエーガー氏との関係は我々エルディア国民の
Brilliant.
問題で
This
す。
is brilliant.
ハンジさん、あなたは情報は納税者に委ねられる。
Oh, but it's also heartbreaking for Hanji.
その姿勢に変化があったのですか。
Next in line. This role of
変わっ
ours.
たんだよ。情報の持つ意味が変わったんだ。
辛い立場なのはわかるよ。ハンジさん、だから目を見て言ってくれ。信じていいって。
Fraggle.
すべてはエルディア国民、みんなのためだ。
Sunnis. All that time ago, he said this, didn't he? This role of ours. It has an order.
エレンの情報を渡したのは君たちか。ホルガ、ビム、ルイーゼ。
She was there, right? At
フロック。
at Liberio.
なんでそんなことを？
エレンを解放すべきだからです。彼は何も間違った
Yeah,
ことをしてい
that's
ない。
flocked for you.
途方もなく巨大な敵に立ち向かい、勝利を手に入れたエレンは我々神聖エルディア帝国国民全員の命を救いました。
その地ならしが期待通りに機能して、
Right. Even a
我
sampling
々を
of it.
救う保証は何もないんだよ。
Whoa.
このまま無意に時間を消費する余裕が我々にあるのでしょうか。このままでは先の大勝利が無駄に終わります。
Look at that.
この国を導くのはエレン・イェーガーです。
君たちはエレンの情報を外に漏らした罪で裁かれる。この4人を懲罰房へ。
Whoa.
壁中人類の勝利のためなら本望です。
Hanji. She's in such a difficult position now.
こういう役が
Oh, there it is, Sunnis.
役を降りても誰かがすぐに
Next in line. Oh, Isayama's son. Brilliant.
頑張れよ、ハンジ。
Baka. I remember that, man. Let it out. Let it out.
疲れた。
私はあなたに命を救われたあの日から
Oh?
あの時のままです。巨人を人の力でねじ伏せたあなたを見て分かったのです。
Oh, Demo.
何も守れないと。
Episode
私
6.
たちは理不尽な暴力と戦っていいのだと学んだのです。
Wow, she was there.
あの日から少しでもあなたに近づきたくて。ミカサさんが調査兵団に入った理由は何ですか？イエガーさんのためなら彼の自由を。私から言えることは一つ。口を閉じてなさい。
Wow. Episode 6.
もう大丈夫だ。ミカサ。
That's not quite how she used to remember that.
君の監視係は
Whoa.
急遽代役となった。フロックフォルスター。縁も竹縄となったあたりで君を近くの宿泊地まで送
Okay, his head's back to normal there.
この宿泊地はエレン・イェーガーの住処と数十キロの位置にあった。どうもこの時期を境にエレンは単独行動を取るようになるのでな。
Okay, yeah, it's kind of clear, right?
美女と会話できる口実ができ
She is pretty. Look at that. She is quite pretty, actually. That reaction though, Falco.
こんな田舎にいても何の情報も得られない。
You can learn quite a bit from Sasha's father.
ここに根付いた方がいいと思う。じきに世界中の軍隊がこの島に攻めてくるだろう。きっと兄貴やライナーさんたち
Ticking time bomb. It's going to happen.
チークが憎くないの。裏切り者があんなに近くにいたんだよ。
俺たちにできることはねえよ。
お昼にしよう。
That look in her face
仕
though.
事を覚えるのが早いね。体力もあるし、女王の方針で行き場のない子供には支援があるから。ここは4年前に親を失っている子供たちの集まりなの。
Take it in, Gabby. Come on.
受け入れてないようですね。この島の民が世界に対して残虐非道の限りを尽くした歴史をお忘れですか。それはみんなが親を亡くしたことと関係があるの。当
Look
然
at that.
いくら善人のように振る舞おうともマーレではそう教えられてるの。
何言ってんだよ。
これは普遍的な歴史
She knows.
だから。
今なんて言いました。
Yeah, that look on her face. She knew something's up. News probably got
ど
out.
うしても何も自分で叫んでたじゃない。
あ、じゃあ最初っからか。
Oh, whoa, 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 whoa.
悪魔が正体を表した。おかしい
It's gonna take some time for Gabby to
島の悪魔がこんな親切なはずない。
おいバカかお前。
look at that.
なんだ赤山やつ、仲良くしてんじゃん。少しは明るくなってるし。私が住んでた村。
Oh, are they
5
go?
年前ここにも巨人が
Oh, it
現れた
is
の。
season 2, episode
そ
2.
の巨人を見て村の人はみんな逃げた。
Oh, that's
私は
beautiful
どう
though.
することもできなくて、
And then there was that girl.
あそこでお母さんが食べられる音を聞いてた。お母さんはずっと生きたまま食べられて
Yeah,
た。
that was a jarring sight.
次第に声も上げられなくなった。声が出なくなるまで叫んだからだと思う。教えて、お母さんは一体何をして
Gabby had a similar question back in
何を
Liberia,
したから
right?
こんなに恨まれているの。何千年も世界中の人々を虐殺したからでしょ。他の民族の文化を奪って望まれない子を産ませて数えきれないほど
That's like the textbook definition almost.
でもお母さんはこの辺で生まれ育ったから。
Right. Long after her time, right? Sins of the ancestor.
100年前あなたたちの先祖が犯した罪の大きさが問題なの。100年前って、じゃあ今生きている私たちは一体何の罪を犯しているの。
Look at this.
ついこの間だって私の町を蹂躙した。
Whoa.
私のお母さんが殺されたのは4年前だから。先祖が世界中の人を虐殺したから。お母さんは誰も殺してない。ねえミア、ちゃんと答えて。なんでお母さんがあんなに苦しんで殺されたのか、何か理由があるんでしょ。
Yeah.
なきゃおかしいよ。なんでお母さんは生きたまま体を食べられたの。何のために殺されたの。ねえ、なんで。
Come on, Gabby. Take it in.
お母さんには何の罪もありません。ごめんなさい。
軍の情報を敵国に漏らして、それでなんで謝るの。
Tough nut. She's a tough nut to crack, isn't she, Gabby?
教えてくれて。でもレンが謝るのはおかしいよ。
Hmm.
マーレで生まれた
How
だ
about
けなの
that?
に。今の私より少し年上ぐらいのお姉ちゃんが薪割り用の斧を持って入ってきて巨人相手に戦ったの。
そんな無茶だ。
There it is.
結局お姉ちゃんは自分を盾にして巨人から私を逃がしてくれた。お姉ちゃんが生きてたら行くあてのないあなたたちを決して見捨てたりしない。私にそうしてくれたように。今度マーレの人が働いてるレストランに招かれてる。
Nicolo?
そこにあなたたちを連れて行けばマーレに帰る方法が見つかるかもしれない。どうして。私はお姉ちゃんみたいな人になりたいの。
Oni-chan. That was brilliant. You see the two different girls that Sasha saved and Mikasa saved, and the different path each one of them ended up taking, right? The legacy of Sasha Browse. That was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Oh,
獣の巨人の死骸を調べた結果、粉々になったジークの体が部分的に見つかった。足りない。見つかる部位はどれも両腕両足のものだ。我々を欺くために
there it
自らを
is.
亡き者と装ったんだ。ジークはパラディと適正力と手を組み、
As expected of the commander.
高度な飛行技術を見せた。
Onion Capone.
おそらくは4年前のパラディ島調査船に同志を忍ばせた。
Yeah? He's got it all figured out?
の同志をな。
ずっと一緒に戦ってたのに。
Oh, Reiner. Yeah, he's felt that before.
つもりはない。
大打撃を受けたマーレ軍はすぐさま攻勢に転じることはないと。そして半年後に潰されるのを策もなしに
Oh yeah, 6 months is a long time.
世界連合軍を待ってはいられません。今すぐにパラディ島を奇襲すべきです。
Right then, that might be one of the most beautiful and fulfilling endings to an episode, right? That was just magical, actually. That was beautiful. And of course, you know, they did that thing as the ending slowly starts to leak in, right? It slowly starts to come into the final scene of the episode. And again, it's so effective. It's used to great effect in this one as well. I love it. Anytime they do that, I just love it. You know, that ending continues to be just so beautiful. Impossible to skip that, really. But you know, before I go further, as you know by now, I was quite concerned about this episode, quite terrified after how the last episode ended and the things they set up. But yeah, this did not go in that direction at all. Essentially, clearly they've set that up and they're probably going to come back to it. And in that sense, yeah, now that I think about it, it does feel like the end game almost, right? Like the big thing of the season, perhaps, that they might kind of go back to it near the conclusion of the series. The season. So yeah, I was surprised. It was certainly a surprise that it didn't cover that at all, right? Because I was expecting it to just pick up from that point, but it ended up being something else entirely. But beautiful episode nonetheless. How about the voice acting there? Again, once again, Gabby's voice actor and Kaya's voice actor. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Her name, that is. And again, one of the most visually stunning episodes of the season as well. I felt that, this was quite reminiscent of season 2, actually. Some of the background imagery. There's some beautiful frames in this one, right? And some hauntingly beautiful ones as well. I'll get into that. The legacy of Sasha. Oh, man. Yeah, now I'm feeling it. I'm certainly feeling it now. You see that she has had quite an impact, right? Her death has had quite an impact, and, her life had quite an impact on many. Certainly Kaya. It's had a major impact on her. And, again, in that sense, the late Commander Smith said in the perfect game, the living who follow will find meaning in our lives, right? And Kaya has certainly found meaning in Sasha's death, right? Her older sister, she referred to her as Oni-chan. Now they didn't translate that as sister, but I've seen enough One Piece to know Oni-chan. That's the impact she's had on this young girl. She truly felt that Sasha wouldn't abandon people like Falco and Gabby, right? And she's keeping her memory alive and hoping to be like her, right? The type of person she was, right? She wants to emulate that, right? She hopes to be like her. That's the impact of Sasha. It was an incredible callback and an episode full of interesting and intriguing callbacks, right? And in that sense, Sasha was a bit similar to Gabby at one point, right? You see in season 2, episode 2, that Sasha was quite stubborn in her beliefs, right? And it was her father who helped her break out of that type of thinking. And Sasha's father is such a brilliant impact character, isn't he? And then, of course, Sasha mingled and met so many different types of people in her 104th training days, right? And that changed her outlook as well, right? She learned. And, Kaya mentioned the restaurant and, the Marlene that's there, the chef that's there, Chef Niccolo. And, of course, this is the offer he presented to Sasha's father, right, at the grave. So this also sets up for a fascinating encounter, right? Because that Marlene happens to be someone who has had quite a connection with Sasha, right? Who had quite a connection with Sasha. That was clear to see, I think. And Kaya herself doesn't actually know that Gabby killed Sasha, right? She doesn't know this yet. And, it remains to be seen if that is going to come up at some point. And I'm sure Falco is going to try his best to, keep Gabby from saying anything that could cause a situation, right? That's for sure. So yeah, certainly presents for an interesting or intriguing encounter, right? If they do end up going to that restaurant and Chef Niccolo is there, right? And they've certainly set it up as Kaya telling them that there is a Marlene there. And, one of the really nice things to see here is that, the characters the audience has followed this whole time since season 1, the characters all of us love, characters like Sasha, they've grown up now and their actions are affecting a whole new generation, the younger generation. You see Sasha's reflection in Kaya. But in that sense, you also see how Mikasa also has, she's had an effect on someone of the younger generation as well, right? And it doesn't look like Mikasa was all too proud of the type of impact she ended up having on Louise, right? And, that scene down in the jail cell in the dungeons, that had some really interesting moments, didn't it? I mean, I'll get back to the parallels between Mikasa and Louise, but for the first time in a long time, I see the salute, right? But the significance of that salute, that's the interesting thing here now, right? It's starting to take on a different meaning, or at least in this specific case, right? Through one of these followers of Eren. Extremists, essentially, right? Originally, it was all about dedicating your hearts and fighting for humanity, right? Shinzo Sasageo, Commander Smith, utilized it in a different manner, didn't he? But now it seems to have taken a different meaning or significance, right? More of a nationalist salute, right? Performed by this extremist who legitimately took inspiration from Mikasa or Mikasa's actions, and now Eren as well, right? So it's quite jarring to see that salute in that manner, right? Or used in a different manner now, or taking different meaning now. Now, as I mentioned during the reaction, you see the contrast here. The different meanings both these young girls have taken from being saved, one by Sasha, one by Mikasa, right? You see that Louise has taken a totally different type of message from Mikasa saving her and the people in that area, right, on that day. In episode 6, right? And, it's certainly a fascinating situation, as surely Mikasa herself is starting to notice some jarring parallels with this young girl, right? Now, let's not forget that Mikasa herself was serving time for something quite similar, something really similar, right? For crossing a line, going against figures of authority, right? Heicho and Hanji in Shiganshina, right? And Flock rightfully called him out for that, didn't he? Insubordination, essentially, same as Louise. And then she asked Mikasa why she initially joined the Scouts, right? The audience knows it was because of Eren, and that Eren saving her on that day had a major impact on her life as well, right? Much like how Mikasa has had a major impact on this girl's life and her trajectory, right? And as Louise, starts to mention Jaeger, Mikasa shuts her down instantly, right? She doesn't want to hear this. She tells her to shut her mouth or keep her mouth shut, right? In a sense, you kind of also feel like she is starting to see a bit of herself through this girl, right? And it's a bit difficult for her to face, I think. This girl is here because of Mikasa, right? She took a different message from that, from Mikasa saving her. And you see that she idolizes Mikasa to a point of obsession even. And that she wanted to get closer to her, right? And once again, that might have reminded Mikasa of her own trajectory, with Eren, right? She's also had this obsessive devotion towards Eren since that point, right? Since that day Eren saved her, right? I believe the final scene of episode 6 is Mikasa thinking something like, Eren, if you're here, I can do anything, right? Mikasa's obsessive nature, pertaining to Eren has been a long-running theme of the story as well, right? So yeah, there's some undeniable parallels here, right? She's seeing, but the really interesting thing here is that I think Mikasa is now seeing through, this girl's actions, she's seeing that maybe, her obsession, her, devotion to Eren this whole time, you see that maybe it's starting to fall apart, right? There's cracks in it now. Now, that is all interesting enough, for sure. But then something quite strange happened, right? One of those headaches kicked in, right? This is a unique moment. A rare moment that happens from time to time. I believe the last time was on top of that roof, right? In Shiganshin, as Heicho and Eren are trying to, go back and forth about Armin and Commander Smith. That was the last time I saw her have one of those headaches. This is certainly, the timing of this is certainly quite interesting, right? Why now? And you see that as she kind of sees Luis, do the salute, as, the shot kind of lingers on the hand. Now, I'm not sure if that is the cause of this, or if that's the reason this triggered the headache, but just this whole setting, this moment, and this headache happening now, it's certainly quite an interesting occurrence, isn't it? But the most fascinating part, right, this is, wow, is that the flashes she's having, back to that moment from episode 6, she's remembering it in a totally different light, almost as if she buried this deep in her mind, right, and set it aside, But now she's actually thinking back to it as the really strange and unsettling situation it truly was, right? For us, it was, for the audience, it was undeniable how strange and unsettling it was. I still remember. I'll never forget. I recently even brought this up again. How jarring it was, how unsettling it was to see this young child, behave in this manner and be so sure that this is the thing to do here, right? And be so sure in his actions, in his brutal actions, right? And, it's clear that she is not remembering it like she used to. It felt like it was much more of a sinister callback to that moment, right? And that she is remembering it as a sinister moment that it was. Almost as if she's actually finally accepting the dark nature of, what she actually saw that day. And those flashes are certainly presented almost like a nightmare for her, right? Love the framing of that one shot of young Eren, right? As she's on the floor looking up. And the framing of that, you see his face is out of the frame, and you see Eren as this ominous, larger-than-life figure, even at that age, even at that young stature, right? You see Mikasa looking up at him. I thought that was such a poignant frame. I'd say that's one of my favorites of this season, easily. I mentioned a hauntingly beautiful frame. This is one of them. And I believe this shot of the birds, the birds, Mikasa, essentially it's her perspective, right? They didn't show this in episode 6, did they? This is new. I'm pretty positive. I'm pretty certain this is new. Again, in that sense, it is a new perspective on it, because it feels like Mikasa is remembering it for the dark situation it was, right? So, perhaps that scarf, that red scarf, is starting to slip. The meaning behind that red scarf maybe is starting to slip now, right? That was the feeling I was getting from this. Interesting scene. And interesting that, this headache moment once again happens at this moment in time. Now, how about that post-credit scene, Marley? A return to Marley. Now, that was a pleasant surprise. I was actually so happy to see them again. Reiner, Peak-chan, Galliard, and the commander as well. I get to see the aftermath, right? The immediate aftermath of the attack on the barrio, right? And it's a bit of an update, essentially. But, beyond just the update or the aftermath, it appears that they might be on the move real soon, right? Heading back to Parody. And, this is because Reiner is imploring the commander to launch a surprise attack at once, right? And this wasn't just an idea being put out there in passing. You see how sure Reiner is of this plan of action. He's certainly right about this. They cannot waste any time. Certainly not 6 months. And it looked like the commander is quite receptive of this idea, right? I mean, the dramatic presentation of that final scene makes it quite clear that that indeed this is most likely going to be the case, that they are going to put this into motion, this surprise attack, right? And, given the chaotic and devastating nature of the Liberio attack, there's been no time to put together a new war council, right? This is it, right? Commander Magath was supposed to be the highest ranking official, right? That was the plan. That was the whole plan, to give him control of the military, the Marleyan military, right? So he's the highest ranking official. And at this point in time, the warrior unit, right, and the chosen candidate, Colt, are essentially part of this the council, right? And I'm really liking this. You can see that the commander is treating this like a proper briefing for them, right? And listening to their input. And this was established all the way back in episode 1. Even then I noted that he is open to collaborating, right? He is open to ideas from the warrior unit. That he does feel like they do have opinions that matter, right? And that could play a part in the plans, that they do have good ideas, and he's open to listening and collaborating, right? So they established that really early on in the season. So it's really great to see this, and he's known these particular members since they were young children, right? So there's that familiarity and trust that's been built over the years, right? He has an understanding, or they have an understanding of each other. And in that sense, clearly they also know that the commander is a bit different than the rest. Clearly over the years they've picked up on that, right? And the commander did refer to Zeke and his followers as Eldian restorationists. So there it is. As expected, he didn't buy any of it. And that was established some time ago, that he had his doubts, right, about Zeke already. So yeah, I didn't expect him to buy this, and yeah, it played out like that, didn't it? And it was essentially confirmed the moment the moment Peak-chan mentioned that she recognized one of his followers, right? Yelena. So that essentially confirmed it anyways. But long before this, he said they looked at the corpse of the Beast Titan, and they found some remains, but of course not the key component, right? They only found like an arm and a leg, but they didn't find the thing they were looking for in this specific case, or particular case. And another thing to note here about Peak-chan is that she was there in Shiganshina, in the conclusion to the Battle of Shiganshina, as Zeke, faces or, sees Eren Yeager, his younger brother, for the first time, and he tells him, "I'll come back for you, I'll rescue you," right? Peak is there, she hears this, right? So she already kind of had some understanding of how Zeke really sees Eren Yeager. And, I spoke of a potential coming together of Galliard and Reiner after this, after experiencing this, and after, knowing that Reiner single-handedly kind of, brought the Jaw Titan back to their side and, essentially saved Galliard's life. I was really looking forward to the next time they, kind of meet each other or, get to speak with each other. I was quite happy with how it turned out. This time you see that Galliard has a different, demeanor about him. As, once again, he sees Reiner snap out of another, nightmare perhaps. He wakes up in a state of panic once again. And of course, the first thing he remembers is Gabby and Falco, shouting his name. That's the last thing that's lingering in his mind still. And essentially that's the thing that is, about to take him back to Paradis. Right? He's ready to go back to Paradis, right? For these children that he cares for so much. He wants to get them back, right? On a personal level, more so on a personal level. And of course, from a professional standpoint, they are the two most capable candidates that they have left, right? Colt was meant to take on the Beast Titan, but the Beast Titan is not part of the plans anymore, is it? for them at least, as the unit. So yeah, they feel that they have to recover these two candidates. But of course, for Reiner, it's personal. He feels responsibility for them, right? But I loved how this time around Galliard is much more, receptive, inclusive, right? He's not combative as he was in episode 2, right? And standoffish. He even offers a drink. So I love that. I really do love that. And, there's another Galliard and Reiner moment as Galliard is having a moment to himself, almost just thinking back to all the time he spent with Zeke Yeager, right? Who is now considered a traitor, right? So you see that he's having this breakdown almost, this mini breakdown of, spending all this time with a traitor, and, cuts to Reiner, a close-up of Reiner. And he gets to see firsthand, once again, how, people like Eren must have felt, right? And others from the 104th must have felt after, finding out that Reiner is a traitor. And again, that's all relative, right? To them, he ended up being a traitor. And you see, man, Reiner, this dude, my dude is so tormented, man. He just can't catch a break. Everything's a constant reminder, isn't it? And now he's heading back to Paradis to get Gabby and Falco back. Right then, I think it's time to tackle the Gabby aspect of this episode. And, this episode actually featured Gabby and Falco quite a bit. I mean, most of the episode is based around that storyline, isn't it? Now, I've got to say, I feel quite bad for her. I really do. Yes, she might be a tough nut to crack. She might be quite stubborn, right, in her belief. But, in the grand scheme of things, it's incredibly sad that this child is going through such an experience, that she's been put into a position like this, right? And this is all she's ever known, right? There's so much self-hatred on display once again. And, before I go any further, it has to be noted that this trauma of the Liberio attack is still quite fresh, right? It's quite recent. And she certainly saw the death and destruction firsthand. Unfortunately, in this specific case, all of that indoctrination turned out to be true, right? It proved to be true, or, in line with the things she's believed all of her life, right? Because she saw the Devil of Paradis rampage and kill, right? She saw Eren Yeager, the Attack Titan, just go on a riot, and then, then his comrades come in, as far as Gabby's concerned, at least, because she doesn't know the insides of, how things are playing out for the scouts. But as far as she knows, these are her comrades. They came in, they assisted him in killing people in Liberio, right? So in that sense, any potential change of heart, a shift in ideals, eyes being opened up to how things really are, it's going to take some time, right? It's certainly going to take some time. And you see that Kaya still had, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but you see that she did have some anger, right? She harbored some anger, and fair enough. Even though she's had a few years to deal with, the immense trauma of losing her mother in that manner, right? You see how she's describing it once again to Falco and Gabby, and you see how horrified they are. I mean, Falco certainly seemed horrified. So this opportunity to actually talk with Marleans, right, does bring that back to the forefront, doesn't it? As she seeks answers for her mother's death. And the reason behind it, that there must be a reason. Otherwise, it's just crazy, right? That's what she said to Gabby. And, much like Gabby asked why Sophia and Udo had to die, Kaya had the exact same question about her mother, right? And she's posing this question to Gabby. And in that sense, Falco is getting to experience this yet again, right? So, he was there for Eren and Reiner's conversation in the basement, right? Eren posed the exact same question to Reiner. Why did my mother have to die, right? Now he sees an emotional and angry Kaya, right? Ask the same question, looking for answers, searching for answers, and there are no answers, right? For her at least, until now. That's why, she let this happen. That's why she's kind of covering for them, because she wants to ask them. And, you know, at least Falco gave her something on that front, right? Even though it wasn't anything nice, you know, it wasn't something nice to hear, that's for sure. You know, he mentioned that it was a staging for a larger attack, and, you know, her mom and, her and her mom got caught up. You know, imagine spending years just thinking back to that moment over and over in your mind, of your mother dying like that, and, you know, just thinking of the reasoning behind it. You know, how come they had to go through that? You know, they didn't do anything to anyone, right? That was one of the main talking points of this, encounter, this exchange, right? Emotional exchange, and some, you know, fantastic voice acting on display for sure, right? Kaya's voice acting, and Gabby's voice acting, just, you know, brilliant stuff. This back and forth they're having, and, you know, you see for the first time in a long time, Gabby finally she's left speechless. She doesn't have a retort, right? She's not able to retort as Kaya is essentially asking the exact same question Gabby had not too long ago in Liberio, right? And she's not able to reply, right? Or see anything to it. You know, Kaya does thank Falco, yet she also thinks it's strange for Falco to apologize for Marley, right? He was just born there, right? So I thought that was so fascinating. Her disposition is actually quite staggering, isn't it? That this individual, given her experiences, is able to have this kind of understanding, and that she actually does understand both Gabby and Falco. She understands that they're both different. You know, you see that she doesn't harbor any resentment towards Falco, and even Gabby, for that matter. I think she actually does understand that Gabby has been brainwashed and that she's been fed this all her life, and she's actually just bought into it. You know, this is all she's ever known all her life. So in that sense, yeah, it's quite staggering that this individual has this kind of understanding. Now, you know, I need to focus on Gabby. There's quite a bit to tackle here. You know, like I was saying, it is so sad that this has been all she's known all her life, right? This hate for her own kind, you know, this immense hatred, this self-hatred as well, right? And, you know, the one thing that's been a constant is the constant reminder of the sins of the ancestors, right? They make sure that that was clear. You know, they made it clear even in episode 1 that they do not let you forget, right? They do not let the Eldians forget that this is, that they have to atone for the sins of their ancestors, right? Every day there's a reminder. And, you know, at one point you see in Gabby's reaction that she's shocked, baffled, angry even at the notion that, you know, this person from Paradis, Kaya, seems to be showing no, understanding of the sins of their ancestors, right? And on top of the constant reminder from the Marleyan side, you know, Gabby happens to be from that household, right? The same household as Reiner. And you see the effect it had on young Reiner as well, right? Their family, that household, just happens to be one of the Eldian households in Liberia that has fully bought into the Paradis Island Devil's angle, right? Though I think as the figurehead of that extended family, Reiner's mom, Karina, I think she certainly established a firm belief within that family, right? Within that household. And you see it through young Reiner, you see it through young Gabby. You know, so again, like I said before in my episode 8 discussion, you know, I'm not even going to compare Gabby to Falco. You simply cannot compare these two. The upbringing is so different, right? You just can't bring that into this. People are different. People have different upbringings. So I'm not even going to compare her to Falco and take that angle. I'm just not. Now, see, I'm not even sure if Reiner's mom is even alive anymore, but, you know, she certainly had a lot of resentment, didn't she, towards the island Eldians, the island devils, that is, for leaving them behind. That was her big thing, right? This resentment comes from the fact that she feels abandoned. You know, she's of the group that feels abandoned by these Eldians, right? That they were left behind. Yet they're over there on that island on Paradis, just, you know, living this life on a paradise. Little do they know it's no paradise down there either, or it wasn't for a long, long time, right? Now, you know, as I mentioned, Reiner, Gabby has seen Reiner come back a changed person, right? That was the big thing in episode 2. His family, his loved ones are noticing that there's a dramatic shift in Reiner, right? His attitude. They can notice it. It's noticeable, right? Near the conclusion of the episode, Gabby even brings that up, right? She tells him that, Aunt Karina thinks you've changed, that something's up. Something's really different about you. And of course, Gabby noticed that too, right? And of course, there's that dinner table moment. As a shocked Gabby listens to Reiner's story, saying things like all sorts of people, right? That left his mom and Gabby both just absolutely rattled, just baffled. And she is seeing this firsthand, right? She is experiencing this firsthand already. She noticed Sasha's dad's southern accent, right? A southern Marleyan accent, to be exact. So even that in itself is such an interesting experience already, isn't it? At this point in time, Gabby has registered that there is something that is identical here, right? Something that is so familiar. Something that is just like home, that she recognizes this. But the thing that's clear to see here is that Gabby is effectively putting up a barrier, right? A shield of sorts to deflect these kinds of things. And this is just one of many throughout the episode, right? I mentioned another big moment earlier, right? As Kaya really confronts her about this, and she's kind of left speechless. She had no response to Kaya, and you see her, and it was great to see how her face was animated and drawn in that moment, right? You could tell that she is kind of understanding Kaya's angle, right? But going back to my point, it's also clear to see that she is putting up a barrier, right? And I think she's putting up this barrier so she can maintain or, preserve that stance she's believed all her life, about the devils of Paradis, right? Like I mentioned in one of my earlier discussions, again, I think it was episode 8's discussion, that's been her driving force, that's the thing she's believed in all her life, right? She's holding on to it, right? She's holding on to that belief. And in episode 8, I did bring up her arc, her character arc, and the trajectory of it. Now, it's still not clear if this is going to play out as a positive change arc. It might get to that point at some point. It could, but she's not able to cross that bridge just yet. Is there going to be a before and after mindset? Is she going to be able to escape the effects of the lie, right? And you can pinpoint a lot of things here. The lie the character believes, that's been firmly established since day one, since episode 1 of season 4. Island devils, the island Eldians equals devils, right? They're responsible for everything. They give us a bad name, or they give us good Eldians a bad reputation. The lie the character believes is established right from the beginning, right? So that's clear cut right from the beginning. Gabby's stance on all of that. Now, the really interesting thing about this character arc is that, Gabby is being presented with tools to overcome that lie, right? And she is encountering difficulties in pursuing that lie, right? A lot of roadblocks. Though she is putting up the barrier, isn't she? So I'd say it's essentially the midpoint of this potential character arc. I mean, not potential, it is a character arc, but potential positive change arc. Because she's clearly presented with the truth and the opportunity to follow it, right? But in my episode 8 discussion, I did bring up the possibility, even though it might be a small one, of a corruption arc, right? Or at least signs and things that are usually present in a corruption arc, right? And I think it's even more noticeable in this episode as she does put up the barrier, right? It's clear to see that, So, she's putting up that barrier to reject these conflicting things she's seeing, And because of that, she's potentially seeing signs of the truth, right? But choosing to reject that truth and then embracing the lie that has been her driving force, right? And, the thing is, you can see that she almost does take an irredeemable action, right? Or had every intention of taking, as she made a move to potentially kill Kaya twice, at least, right? So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this arc plays out, because at this point, that rage and that need to, hold these Eldians responsible for the sins of their ancestors is still firmly part of her plans and outlook, right? Essentially, it's a difficult prospect to face the idea that your life's purpose has been built on a lie, right? Or founded on a lie, right? And this particular individual also happens to be quite young and has just recently, watched her friends die and home trampled on, right? So all of that is so fresh in her mind. So like I said earlier on, it's going to be a slow process if she is going to come around, if she is going to see things from a different lens, right? A change of heart. It's going to be a slow process if it is going to happen. Right then, Hanji-san. Yeah. Man, you have to feel for her. You really do have to feel for her. You see that she's feeling the pressure. A lot of this responsibility falls on her shoulders, right? The pressures of being the commander, eh? And speaking yet again of the many callbacks of this episode, Isayama-san brings that moment with Sunnis full circle, doesn't he? I mean, that was just brilliant. I think this is just, oh my goodness. Next in line, this role of ours has an order, right? Now Hanji-san finds herself as the latest in the limelight, right? Taking her position now. Now, remember how annoyed she was back then, even in that episode in season 3, part 1? She starts kicking at chairs and Heicho, walks in and sees it. She's in such a different position now, right, as commander, and a lot of the responsibility falls on her shoulders. You see that Eren's followers, Flock and the rest, they have the luxury of being able to completely abandon any sort of moral compass, right? To them, the path is quite clear, right? So they do have that luxury. But I do like how Hanji handled that situation. She established that at the end of the day, it was her responsibility, that it was ultimately her decision, regardless of Eren forcing her hand or not, At the end of the day, as commander, it was her decision, right? Therefore, at this point in time, she is not going to tolerate any more disobedience, right? She was swift and she was definitive in passing down punishment and clarifying what's to happen to them, right? For leaking this sensitive information, right? Now, on the opposite end, you have Flock, who now seems to have the specific look that he noticed on the scouts' faces, right? On Levi Squad's faces back in the season 3, part 1 finale, right? This is a changed individual. Long gone are the days of that naive, hopeful young recruit, right? Long gone are the days of him having that emotional breakdown during Perfect Game, season 3, episode 16. Now he is confident in his path in life. He's confident in Eren Yeager, right? The devil that is necessary for the survival of this new Eldian Empire, right? And, it should be noted that no one outside of Flock was actually referring to it as the new Eldian Empire, right? Flock, and then, of course, in addition to Flock, the other followers. But, of course, Flock is like the spokesperson, right? He's the ringleader of this, cult of Eren Yeager, essentially. He's the only one, even back on the aircraft after the attack on the barrier, he's the one who's leading the celebrations and, calling it a victory, a great one for the new Eldian Empire. Like I've stated a few times now, and I've covered in detail, even back in the season 3, part 2 finale, right? This character development and character arc has been quite a good one. I've enjoyed it quite a bit. I enjoy Flock's role in this quite a bit. And I firmly believe, I've said it a few times now, I firmly believe it's necessary, right? And, originally he was introduced as almost inconsequential in the grand scheme of things, but look at him now, right? Look at him now. I think he is playing quite an important role at this moment in time, and, I say that because it also appears that he is collaborating with Yelena as well. I am enjoying her role in this as well. Yelena, that is, she's, again, she is of the same, it feels like she's cut from the same cloth, right? She is quite mysterious, and, similar to Zeke in that sense, right? And, speaking of Yelena, Pixis essentially spells it out for the audience, doesn't he? Yelena was escorted back to her holdings by one of Eren's followers, Flock, right? Who is essentially going on trial for leaking sensitive information, right? He's essentially a prisoner at the moment. And, you know, she seems to have had some kind of contact with Eren because Pixis once again noted that this was around the time Eren started to act on his own and take matters into his own hands. So, you know, it doesn't get any more clear cut than that, does it? Pixis is spelling it out for the audience here. Clearly, I mean, two things are clear to see here. Eren's followers are collaborating with Zeke's followers. You know, you see Flock and Yelena have collaborated and they are on the same page, right? And essentially, you know, Pixis is implying here, and, you know, there's a strong case for this, that once Yelena kind of got into contact, you know, he certainly believes she was able to get in contact with Eren, you know, given how they presented, she was so close to Eren's own home, right? Something changed, right? Clear, if they did end up meeting, something changed. She presented Eren with something, you know, information. Perhaps, you know, she passed on something from Zeke, right? And Pixis noted that that's the moment Eren changed and took matters into his own hands. So there's that really interesting possibility as well, you know, because it appears that, you know, Pixis is going to interrogate, or not interrogate, it wasn't that kind of setting. It appears that he is going to have a conversation with Yelena. So that, you know, could be an exciting prospect, depending on the things she's able to disclose or is going to disclose at this point in time. You know, so things are going to become even more chaotic for Hanji and the rest. You know, she's already kind of really stressed out, right? You see, you do feel bad for her in a lot of these moments, but then, you know, that's the pressure, right? That's the responsibility of being the commander. Though you have to understand that she didn't pick this. You know, it should be noted that she didn't choose to be the commander. This responsibility just kind of fell to her, right, as the next in line. So, you know, things are going to become even more chaotic, you know, especially given the fact that, you know, on top of all of this, Marley might be coming in hot, right? They might be coming in with a surprise attack. So there's going to be that angle as well. So a lot of chaotic situations are about to play out, aren't they? And, you know, there's also a firm possibility of an uprising. They've already shown me the beginnings of an uprising, right? A revolution. But this time, I mean, before I go any further, you know, you see that was clearly Flock's intention, you know, to rock the boat. You see that by leaking that info, that's exactly how he wanted the situation to play out. You see the MPs that are even in that room as Hanji is questioning them. Even they are starting to question things, right? So, you know, they've rocked the boat and then some, because even outside there seems to be a lot of commotion. There's a lot of questions for Hanji, and, you know, that was the thing that was a really unfortunate situation, that now she kind of has to do the same thing she was fighting against all that time ago, right? Holding back information because the situation has now changed, right? And, you know, it's the same people that she inspired all that time ago, people like Fragel and these two journalists, right? Yeah, this is, you know, so much like season 3 part 1, you know, the uprising there, and she certainly played, or she was a driving factor in inspiring these people, right? Fragel and the journalists, and, you know, in extension to them, a lot of the other people. Now she finds herself on the opposite end of it, of an uprising, a potential uprising, a revolution, right? So it's crazy, isn't it crazy? And it all goes back to Sunnis, right? Comes full circle. And I really like that Fragel hasn't really turned on Hanji, right? He hasn't turned, yet there are questions, right? There's a lot of questions that need answering. There's a lot of information that a lot of these people need. And, you know, at this moment in time, Hanji is not able to give them information, right? But he does understand the position she's in, right? And he does want to trust her. He really does. You see that in the season 3 finale, that they had so much trust in them, right? They had so much pride in the scouts for what they did for them and what they're about to do for them, right? And, you know, speaking of, you know, potential sampling of the rumbling, Lady Kiyomi, once again, you know, she makes an appearance. You know, I noticed that the thing she said to Zachary is essentially the same thing she said to Lord Tiber, you know, before he goes on stage. Oh, you know, my people, my clan knows all about your bravery, right? And now she tells Zachary the same thing, you know. Haizuru is full of compliments, and that they have nothing but praise for Eldia's bravery in all of this, right? So, and you see that they're highly ranked engineers, these talented engineers of Haizuru have been busy, right? They've already made use, right, of this ice burst stone, right? And they're using it as a source of fuel, right, for this new aircraft that, they plan on using to get an up-close look at this potential sampling of the rumbling, right? So, yeah, they move fast. But yeah, Lady Kiyomi, interesting character in this whole Haizuru angle and, of course, the Mikasa connection. But I think in the grand scheme of things, if the shit is to hit the fan, or if the shit hits the fan, I firmly believe she'll be out of there. Her and her people are going to just, essentially run out of there or get out of there ASAP. And, the last few episodes, they've made it quite clear that things are about to get chaotic, even in this episode. And I feel like she'll be out of there. She'll try to get out of there the moment things don't go according to plan. Their intentions are quite clear. They became quite clear recently, right? And I think that might be it for this one. I think I've covered everything I really needed to talk about or felt the need to talk about.